Hey, and welcome back to the Tree of Life. And today I'd like to welcome Louise Rowland and Lorraine McCarthy, who's been here before, and they were on. Lorraine was on the first episode, and today we're going to be talking about bereavement. So these two come with different viewpoints in how to deal with bereavement, and not only that, they have also. I think we all have experienced bereavement that we might be able to share today. So hopefully you'll be able to take some tips and techniques from how we deal with it, and the different types of bereavement that everybody goes through, not realizing that we all go through it. So it's just a case of communicating with each other and helping each other through these times when you're going through it. So let's talk about types of bereavement. Let's start with you, Lorraine.
Well, there's many types of bereavement, and I have had, as we discussed earlier, some personal experience around it. But I'm kind of aware of kind of the stages that they talk about. I suppose we'll go into that after. But the types, it's not just when someone passes or dies. It's other things, loss of some other nature. Losing a relationship. Losing a job, losing something that is kind of very important to us as individuals, and it creates a certain set of maybe negative responses and maybe a process of adjustment. So we go through from one stage of just feeling numb or denying it or just unhappy, to then going through the whole process to eventually hoping to accept the situation. So I think with what's happening right now, kind of globally, there is this sense of loss. Loss, a lot of people have lost their jobs. I've lost my job, for example, I was made redundant. I've lost the team that I used to work with, so I miss my people that I used to work with, those connections that I had. And also, I'm kind of isolating on my own. Sometimes I see my son, but there's a loss of kind of communication, not so much communication because I can communicate online, but physical communication that you have. So there's a loss there. And I think it's not the unknowing, not knowing, where we are economically. There's changes with people's finances, not knowing about employment. And so there's all sorts of loss going on at the moment. And I just happened to read a little bit about what that's called, and that's called anticipatory loss. It's quite relevant to what we're all going through right now. I think it's felt, by most people that they're finding this experience on some level quite negative and quite worrying. But I guess it's a learning experience as well that we can go through too.
I think that's it, definitely. The experience of bereavement, like you said, it doesn't have to be just one type. The loss of, I lost, I applied for university to do my master's, and because of everything else, I lost my position. And I was like, I kicked myself again and again and again, and it's just like, no, you know what? It's sometimes how you cope with that loss, and how you deal with it and get through it. But it's not, you don't have to, someone doesn't have to pass away for it to be a bereavement. You are losing something you love. You lose something that you're enjoying. You lose a lot of things. Like through these times, a lot of people have lost a lot, and they are grieving over that. It's just, it's just a sad thought. What's your views, Louise?
Yeah, it's interesting as you're saying that, because I was obviously, before as we were talking, I was thinking to think about bereavement like not being necessarily a loss of a person, like being other different things. Like I've recently had an experience where very recently, literally a few days ago, where I kind of almost in like the process that we go through. And
it's a massive process. It's like even people don't realize also the types of grief, and what happens after you've kind of, you're in that position where you're actually bereaving in that moment. So yeah, let's talk about types of grief, so that viewers can really understand that they don't actually have to have the onset of that emotion straight away. Like the emotion can come afterwards. Like on our second episode, I spoke about what happened when I was a baby, and when my mum had told me something, I was like, yeah, that's it, yeah, all right, whatever. And then 2 months later, the emotion clicked in. I was like, I can't believe it. I can't believe he did that. And like, as a father, I really can't believe that. And at that moment, I was actually shocked and grieving that someone I loved did that to me. Someone I knew did that to me. And that grieving process and that bereavement process of why I'm grieving about this. So the point of was about it doesn't have to be, the onset doesn't have to be now, there. It can be at any time in your life. It can even happen to you like a few years later down the line, when you've actually acknowledged that situation. And acknowledging that situation then gets you into that process of, I'm shocked now. I'm actually really sad. I'm really affected by this. So yeah, let's talk about the types of grief. Let's start with you, Louise.
Yeah, well, from what you were just saying, how like, yeah, something can instantly like happen to us, and that in that moment you're like shocked and maybe not processing all the different emotions that are coming in, and it may be such a shock that you didn't even realize that was a reality. And it's, yes, I wouldn't know exactly how to say all the different types of grief, let's say, but like understanding, like the process of maybe like being in denial of like what's actually just gone on is a massive part. And then suddenly, like, I guess it's like accepting, like just understanding that there's going to be a process, and kind of surrender to it. And I know that can be hard to accept sometimes, because like there's going to be pain sometimes. Like there may be pain, or there may be like this grief. If we were to and this has just become from experience, but if we were to kind of feel into that and allow that emotion to just kind of flow. I always look at like when anything kind of triggers me, and like I'm in an emotion that may be like an anger emotion or like a negative emotion, I'm going to accept that, because I know it's a part of life. You know, like we get thunder, or we get all these things happen that are destructive, and they're meant to happen, but like allowing that to just flow through your body, and rather than attacking it, just allow it to kind of evolve with you. But I know that's sometimes like easier said than done, but by attacking it, sometimes we can suppress it, and that's when it might come like later on in life. But it's like sometimes it's hard to know how to deal with it in the situation, isn't it? So it's, yeah. I'm just coming from experience, but maybe Lorraine's good at this.
No, I think that's really, I really agree with what you're saying as well. I think it's like each person has got an individual process, haven't they? And you know, there is that point of when you're told something has changed, like someone dying or something's taken away in your life that's so meaningful and important. I think there is a sense of like, we have a numbness, don't we? Like a shock and a denial, and then that can go on for however long it has to go on for. And I think with everybody it's slightly different. And I think we should allow ourselves that's fine as well, like not have that pressure to have to force ourselves. We've got to get over it, just get over it, stiff upper lip and just get on with it, and don't express yourself. I think it's a really important point, Louise, that you said about being able to just express yourself, allow yourself to have those feelings, because it's better out than in. I mean, if we keep it all inside, that's really bad in internal organs, you know, in our psyche and nervous system. if we can kind of express it to somebody else, or have a way of kind of journaling, or express it through art or running, or, you know, just exercise, something where we kind of release it from our bodies as well. I think that's really, really important. So yeah, no, I really get what you're both saying about that. You know, it's about that sense of numbness and a sense of disbelief, and then there's other emotions that come through, like maybe anger, still kind of accepting it, can't believe that that person's gone, can't believe that person did that to me, whatever it is. And then you slowly kind of reorganize your life, and it's still kind of shifting things and readjustments. And then eventually it's like about that self-care, isn't it? And saying to yourself, you know, it's all right to feel like this. This is normal. It's normal to feel, you know, this is how important that thing was to me. You know, if we don't have these things in our life that means so much, I suppose the greater the love, the greater the loss. I read that the other day and I thought that's really true, you know, but we have to keep loving, we have to keep, you know, feeling, because otherwise we'll be half dead, and what's the point in really living our lives anyway? So I think, you know, it's important just to be able to express ourselves, and also have that compassion as well, to really say, you know, we are okay, this is just a normal process, and it's going to come through, and it's got, when it comes through, it'll come out when it comes out, you know,
I think definitely, I can totally relate from that. Like friends I've seen who've been through these bereavement process, but the one that really stands out with all of this is blame. Like you know, and when you're blaming yourself, you end up, or blaming someone else, but you end up kind of breathing so bad that you take no care for yourself, and you start self-abusing. So you start kind of like abusing alcohol, abusing drugs, you know, and you take yourself down this shallow path, because it's gone to that point where you just don't know what to do with that emotion. I remember a friend of mine whose mother had passed away, and I just wanted to be there and support her through the process and get her to understand the process. And it was just so difficult, because I just saw a path where she just wouldn't stop self-abusing herself. And, you know, it's really difficult as a therapist, because you want to help them, but you can't, because they need to kind of start helping themselves. And that's where you kind of get back as a therapist and someone to kind of be a friend. Like, you want to push them to this right path, you can't, because until they learn to go, right, okay, I accept this situation, this has happened, I can't blame anybody, and I cannot blame myself. And sometimes you wish that things were different, or you could have changed the situation, where it's situations you cannot control. It's not in your control. These things that happen are out of your control. So yeah, I don't know whether, you know, I'm ranting a little bit, but self-abuse is just like, it's where you end up kind of hurting yourself more, cutting yourself, because you've lost that person.
With how you say about how there's this stuff that we can't control, it's like what's going on right now, we cannot control a lot of what things are being said outside, anything outside like our minds we can't control, but we can control what we think and how we respond to things, can't we? So we can respond how we, you know, what we put into our bodies, into our minds, and also how we choose to respond to things as well, which is the biggest thing that biggest coping mechanism I suppose that I found going through something quite traumatic. I don't like to say traumatic, but it was like in the moment, but being able to choose that I could look at this in a different way. I could look at this in a way that's going to make me feel fearful to go on in life, or fearful, or just sad to just, yeah, there could be lots, anxiety, depressed, like, but I and I feel so blessed with this. I was able to choose love and peace within, to connect to my body and connect to myself. And we all have that. We all have the availability to choose that. But sometimes I I get that sometimes we have to kind of go through. There was obviously like moments as well where I like went down a hole, where there was a point where like I felt like I could have got to a really bad place, let's say, and like self-abused, maybe not necessarily, like I don't know, there could have been all sorts of things, but yeah, it's like starting to recognize like what's going on in your mind, and starting to recognize what are you saying to yourself, and is that yours, or is that a projection from somebody else, or something else that you've read or you've heard, or that's come from a past well, I don't want to say past life or past experience, but it's really interesting to like just know that we can make that choice within to choose where we go. I could talk about that kind of thing for ages, but
I think that's it's such an invalid point, isn't it, that we could, like you said, we can't control externally what's going on. I mean, things just happen and we've got to deal with it in the best way forward. We just have to keep going. But as we keep going, you know, we can channel our thoughts in the best way possible at that point. And it is a real challenge. And it's not about being perfect, is it? It's just about living your life the best way you can, and with a sense of compassion, not only externally to people that we meet, but internally as well. That's something that's taken me quite a long time to learn. Like, my bar is very high, or it has been, and I'll be quite perfectionist about things. If I don't get something right, it's like, oh my God, berate myself. But actually, no, I wouldn't do that to someone else. I wouldn't say that to somebody else if they didn't get it right the first time. So I'm not going to do it to myself. So it's kind of about the value that we put on ourselves as well. And I think that can really help us when we're going through any trauma in our lives. And losing someone, losing someone that you really love is ultimately one of the worst things that I think most of us can go through. Well, that's what I think anyway. So it's like how we deal with it, and we have to be compassionate to ourselves and give ourselves that reassurance. I think that is number one for me anyway, and not go down that route, like you were saying, Saifon, about self-destruction. That's when we just want to block the thoughts, isn't it? It's like, I don't want to think those things, I'm just going to get pissed or whatever, you know. So, but let's just kind of embrace what's happened. This is really hard. Let's go through it, express how we feel, and, you know, like, start talking to people. I think there's such a good thing that's happening right now. The last few years, actually, we look at kind of mental health in a different way. It's not something to be embarrassed or ashamed about. It's just about being human and having the right to express how we feel, and for other people to connect with that. Because we all want to connect. We all want to, you know, feel like we belong somewhere. And I think the most important thing for people, it seems, is connection. Is being able to feel like they belong, and they can be themselves, and they can express themselves. And if we give people that right, I think the world would be a lot happier place.
Definitely, I can, from both of what you guys have said, projection and value. It's what you project out of your mind, and how you project it. And if you project yourself, not realizing you're projecting yourself in a negative value and saying, I can't cope, you know, then that then sets into your own mind frame of going, I can't cope with this, I can't cope with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a drink, and I'm going to numb that pain until it just stays numb. And then I'm going to do it the next day because I can't cope. But there is, like, you can place a coping mechanism and a coping practice or a coping habit. And it's just putting those little things in place in order to make it work for you. It doesn't have to be like a big, massive step in order to move forward. It's just one little step of positivity. You know, it doesn't have to, you don't have to do the affirmations of going, oh, I'm a positive person, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, of course, you can be a positive person, but it can just be, I'm going out, I'm walking out this door and it's a beautiful day. You know, that kind of thing of just getting out of the house and being around people. I think there's also the support unit, like you were saying, Lorraine. You need to be able to have that support unit around you to be able to cope. So if you're around negative people that are already grieving, those people aren't initially going to get you out of that position. They're just going to hold you there and grieve with you and grieve with you. And it's like, so when are you ever going to move forward? Would you ever move forward? Because they're grieving. You need to be someone that's already been through it and that's coped with it and that will help you out the other side. And that's what you need, not just stay in that place. And you know, don't get me wrong, to the other viewers, I'm not saying that you can't grieve. You need to grieve. You need to express your emotions, and you need to vent, and you need to cry and get angry. I'm not saying fight other people. I'm just saying, like, you know, express it in a way where you're kind of learn martial arts, learn Tai Chi, you know, where you can take this emotion and give it to someone else, or give it to the universe, or put it in a punch bag, or, you know, that kind of way of expressing. I could go on this for ages, but I just wanted to make viewers aware, though. So this isn't a subject that we all specialize in. So this is a subject that we all have experience in, and we're hoping that you get techniques out of what we're trying to tell you. So, oh goodness me, I think I can rant on for ages. Let's talk about tech mechanisms and support. Let's throw it at you, Lorraine.
Yeah, so I think, you know, touched on this before about, you know, being able to express yourself. So if that's with somebody that you feel connected with, that you can trust, I think it's not such a bad thing sometimes to just say to, well, close friends, obviously they'd know if you have lost someone that's important in your life. But sometimes it's relevant to also those people that you're perhaps not so close to. So they kind of know that you're feeling a bit raw or not quite there, you know. So support with friends, support with family, maybe some charity organisation that you want to speak to, like a bereavement group where other people can really resonate with where you're at. Doing something which one enjoys, like exercising, or hobbies, expressive hobbies, then you can immerse yourself in, that you can just feel peaceful and calm. Some people like to meditate, some people like to swim. I know it's difficult now, but yeah, it depends what your bag is. It depends on the individual. And I think maybe doing some volunteering, you know, there's all sorts of stuff, there's all sorts of things. I think it's just got to be tailor-made to that individual. What is it that can give them that little boost? But without denying them that they've got to like feel like, oh, I've just got to get on, I've just got to, you know, be positive. It's really important not to hide that level of emotion and be able to kind of express that best way possible. So yeah, doing all those things that are good for the soul, good for the, you know, the body, good for the mind. So whatever that is. There are other things I haven't mentioned, but you know.
Totally agree with all of them.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting what you say about how, like, we're all different, aren't we, and how you feel in that moment, like maybe and how you, what you said, Saifon, being able just to get out of bed sometimes is like such a something to really celebrate in some people. But like knowing as well, like if there's so much support out there, like everything you said, and I find sometimes like journaling is a really good support, because you're able to kind of express yourself without any judgment, and sometimes you are able to come up with answers, like of how, I don't know, something yourself to kind of support you in that moment. But there's like all the like people to talk to, but sometimes it's really important to kind of recognize where you're at, and if like for example, you just want to go and sit in the garden and just be and meditate, or just literally be on your own and not necessarily see somebody. Because if it feels like you might kind of, it might, I don't know, make you feel a bit tense, or make you feel like you may not be yourself around someone or something, like where you, I don't know, it's important to kind of come back to yourself and realize that maybe sitting on your own might be the right place to be right now. But and kind of coming, sort of finding that love within, and knowing that this process can, there's no like right or wrong how long it's going to take, or how short it may take, but just knowing that. Something I always like to think about is that nature, for example, a tree doesn't necessarily grow overnight. It takes time to kind of slowly get to that point. And like the seasons go from spring to summer, it doesn't go overnight. It's not an overnight thing, like suddenly I'm summer. It's like we have to go through this like natural process of evolving, and it's so different for everybody. But really embracing like those emotions that you're going through, and being okay with that, and gentle on yourself, is a really important thing, I would say.
Definitely. I think when I went through the process of someone passing away, I was like, and I studied the course, and I was like, right, okay, I'm going to do the psychotherapy and hypnotherapy, but I could never relate to what would happen if someone had passed away, and I would never be able to understand until someone had passed away in my life. And I was like, oh my God, now I know what it feels like to lose someone you love. And the best way I could say that I coped with it was, I thought about the positive times, the happy times that made that moment, even though there were times where you argue, but rather not kind of go, well, he annoyed me. Just embrace the fact that, those were the petty little arguments that you guys ended up arguing about. And after he had gone, I was like, right, okay, how do I cope through this? So every day I would sit in my car and I would talk to him, like literally just talk to him, like as if he was in heaven, and just kind of communicate. I knew I wouldn't get a response, but I just needed to just share the load in why, at least, just say goodbye. But it was very difficult to, I want to say goodbye and I can't say goodbye. But it's, I don't know, for me, it was just the ability to kind of like move past it, able to make a conversation and just go, I'm okay. I know you're watching over me. I'm going to be fine, and just be able to move through that process. I think it's just really difficult to explain when you kind of think you're going a little bit crazy speaking into the car by yourself. But, and in times like I sat in the park and I would just talk to him like a normal conversation. And then in the end, eventually, it grew out because I knew I would be okay through the process. But it's different for everybody. It's how you can take that step into be able to cope with it. But
I think it's
sorry.
I think I mean, I've known quite a few people that have died now, so I'm quite a lot older than you two. But I really, sometimes I get that sense of that person's energy is kind of around me, and I just, like you said, have a chat. I'm kind of, it's almost like they are there. And a lot of people that have been through the experience of losing someone that they really love, they say the same thing. It's like they really feel that they're around. And I think it's just to embrace that, and whether they are or not, they aren't physically, but on some level, there might be. So if we get some comfort from that, then that's wonderful too.
Exactly.
We don't have to think that we're crazy or whatever. It's just we're getting something positive from the experience, and if we're connected to them. And it's just like, they're still looking over us. And that's wonderful to feel like that, actually.
That's the thing. We get to choose, don't we? We get to choose how, like, if it means that you are it's releasing that judgment of yourself, like it's okay to kind of be talking to the air right now, but yeah, that's the thing we get to, because from my experience where so I don't like to say lost, because I always feel like she's here with me in my heart. My daughter, just before she was born, her little heartbeat stopped. But I was like able to kind of embrace, as you mentioned, Saifon, sorry, talking about like really embracing those moments I had with her. Like, I know it was in my stomach, but we had some memories with her that I was able to hold on to, and like hold her as well when she was born. But I always feel like she's there with me, and I just hold her in my heart all the time, because that is where she is. And I've created this, so I don't know, you could say a story around it, but like she's always with me, and I feel her. Like, there's been moments where I've like looked into the sky, and this is like a really special moment for me, where I was just sitting outside. This was not long after she passed over. I was looking up to the sky, and I wanted to say goodnight to her. And so I blew a kiss, and literally as that moment happened, I saw a shooting star. Now that could have been a coincidence, but for me, that was her. That was her saying, "Thank you, mummy. Yeah, I love you." And so I got to choose that. But we get to choose what we see as well. So when we start to open up our awareness, these things start to come in. So these messages from the universe, I like to say, from source, from God, whatever you want to say, from your angels. But we I truly believe, like, on that, if we get like on that level, that they're always there, and even if it's just a little voice, or I don't know, a smell or something that you smell. Yeah, there's so much. I find a lot of comfort in that, because I felt this going through that journey. For me, I was able to connect to my heart more than I have ever connected to my heart before. I've never felt so much peace in my life since I gave birth to my daughter, who is now in my heart forever. But that's one of the gifts she gave me, to be able to connect to myself more. And it's so beautiful, and I could go on about this, but
yeah,
absolutely lovely. It's I think every experience, every traumatic experience that you end up facing, take a positive aspect. Now, I'm not saying that you should kind of view it as a positive thing. It's not a positive thing. Embrace the trauma, the fact that it's happened, because you can't turn back time. You can't change the situation from the past and what the past has happened. You can only take what's good, like what you have learned, what the experience that you've shared with them, take in the knowledge that, I believe that people come into your lives for a reason. They come into your life to teach you something, to help learn something, to embrace something, and just give you just guidance or something, but you need to take that on board and take it with you. It's like, so an end of a relationship, let's say, and my past relationship was pretty bad, but that's how I felt. It doesn't mean that he might not thought it was bad, but to me it was a traumatic experience where I breathed a lot, and I never breathed as much for a man. But for that experience, I took it, and he has taught me so much out of the relationship. And the loss of that, I breathed over. But I embraced the fact that he actually came into my life and made me learn more about relationships and the do's and the don'ts, and and the fact that I should think a certain way, and I should do certain things. I should self-care. I should, and he was such a positive impact, but it wasn't a healthy relationship. And I think when that comes into play, and I think we're going to be talking about topics of relationships anyway in later episodes, where, you know, relationships and toxic relationships, and I'm blabbering again. But yeah, take so what I'm saying is, take what you can from the experience, from that bereavement, and go, they've given me the best time at that point of time in their life and my life. You know, yeah, that's it.
I agree with you so much on that, actually. I think that saying, every cloud's got a silver lining, it's so true. And out of almost everything that we go through, there's always something to learn from it. And I think there was something about being, you know, having gratitude in your life and being grateful for things. And we can make that list every day and go, oh, grateful this and that, that. But then sometimes it's almost like saying, okay, I'm even grateful for the shit, you know, because it you know, what it does for the individual, if they embrace it and live through it and strive and just keep going, you know, with all the strength they can muster. Sometimes things are so hard, but if we could just keep going, that next step, we don't know the next steps towards the summit, we might just reach the top, but, you know, to really just keep going. And in the end, it will strengthen us as individuals, and we'll learn so much about ourselves, and also what we don't want. You know, you're saying about the relationship stuff, and it's like, yeah, well, I know what I want in the future and what I don't want, and what I deserve as a person, you know. So definitely I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Gratitude is such a powerful thing, yet it's so simple to just find. There's always something to be grateful in every moment, and it's and if you really feel into that, that the gratitude of what you're feeling right in that moment, it just elevates you in a way, like your energy just shifts in a way. I love what you said there.
Oh, it's been absolutely a pleasure having you both on the show and just sharing, and you guys sharing with me. I'm absolutely honoured to kind of listen to everything. That's why I really enjoy it, the fact that I get to really know you guys, and even though I've known you guys for absolutely ages, it's just like we connect on a deeper level with therapists. Oh, absolutely amazing. I'm getting all teary. Anyway, right, join us next week, where we will be talking about isolation with Louise and Mel. So stay tuned and keep watching, so for more tips and advice and techniques on how you can cope through these times. And take care. And if you need to connect with these two beautiful people, have a look on our website, where you can email them and have a look at their website or their social media page, and you can either get advice from them, connect with them, get them to become your coaches. So yeah, stay tuned, and we'll speak to you soon. Take care and be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's been lovely. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much.